Rabbi Yitzchok, welcome back to Yerushalmi Pesachim. We are up to Kavches Amud Beis. Rabbi Lazar, now various halachas about following the custom. Is that where we are? Yep. Rabbi Lazar Shem Rabbi Avin, Kol Davar She'eni Yedei Shul Mutar. Look, you don't know it's permitted. V'toba, you made a mistake. You thought it was forbidden. V'isur. Nishal, you can ask the Chachamim, look, do you have to carry on? No, they can allow it for you. It was never forbidden. Some say you actually have to allow the minhag through a regret, a Pesach or Charota. Even though it's a minhag b'toros, maybe it's like a neder, maybe you do need a tos nedarim. That's what we want to say. Some say, no, you don't have to allow it, because it's based on a mistake. Okay. Because of a shuyadeh by shulmuta, you know it's permitted, v'unai by ison, you treat it, you make a neder. Nishal, if you ask the chachamim, do you have to carry on, then you can ask them. But we will not allow you. So if you knew it was permitted, but you were still machmir a certain thing, then we'll keep you doing it. Now, about various stories connected with minhag in places. You're allowed to sit on Shabbos on benches, which are the goyim are selling. You don't have to worry, people think you're involved in business dealings. The story of Gamliel, he sat on this bench. They said, they never used to have a minhag to sit on the benches. He didn't want to tell them mutter asking you're allowed to do it. He just went away. The children of Gamliel, they went to wash in the bathhouse in Kabul. Oh, it's not Kabul, by the way, it's not that place. They said, we don't have two brothers washing together. He didn't want to say mutter, it's permitted, and then they went washing one after the other. Another story, if you answer the tile, they went to walk in the street while they're wearing kudkayas, which are sort of wide sandals of gold. In Beira. And the people said, you don't wear these sandals, because you'll take them off your feet and you'll carry them. They didn't want to tell them you're allowed to do it, mutter. And they sent it with their servants back to their house. Now, you're not allowed to do Melach on Erev Pesach in the morning. If that's the minhag, then you have to keep that minhag. Not only with Isur Melach on Erev Pesach, which is an important minhag, even a minhag which is less important, also you should follow their minhagim. The fishermen of Tiberia took on the bean grinders of Zipoid, and the threshing, wheat threshers of Akka, not to do work on Chol Hamoed. Right? Although one could do these sort of jobs in Chol Hamoed, there was Sarach Hamoed, but they refrained from doing them. I understand the bean grinders and the wheat grinders is a good custom, because they could grind these things from before the Chag. You don't have to do it on the Chag. And they can have wheat and beans without grinding it. But the minhag of Charame Tiberia, the fishermen, they're refraining, they're reducing the joy of the festival. And how can they do this? So the ones the sort of a chakana, they still carried out caught fish, but they use different strings and things. Like a string of the cat where the fish gets caught. And sort of a machberet, some sort of other type of net. So they still caught the fish, but they didn't take on to use the big nets, which they do on the weekday. I feel okay. They're causing less fish and they're causing less simcha. Rabbi Ibi, make alone. He would curse the fishermen. They are reducing the joy of the festival. Some say this hunting was done publicly, and that's why it was allowed to be done publicly. The Bavli says they weren't allowed to do it b'fasting. They only had to do it privately. All right. Golem and Mokum, a community where they went in exile from one place with one custom to another place. But Big Shalach Zaben, now they want to go back from their previous custom. Can they do so? They took on themselves never to go in the sea. And after many years, their children went elsewhere, but us and Rabbi, they asked Rabbi, they still, it was dangerous to sea. They took on never to go to the sea. They said, our fathers told us never to go in the sea. Do we have to keep that? Do we have to keep this thing? He says, your fathers used to do that. Do not change the minhag noiche nefesh. So don't change it. You should still keep their customs even after you've moved to another town. Can a person not be shal on his neder to allow it? Why did he not allow them? Tamam. A person makes a neder, he can be shal on it. Nisha. Ramhacha here was the elders that had done the practice of a zeichem nadru, and not you. Therefore, you can't be shal on it. So wait a minute. Of course, they should be allowing it. They never forbade it on themselves. It wasn't for that reason he forbade them to go in the sea. From the following, because Rebbe Talmidid Rabbi Yehuda, it was Talmid Rabbi Yehuda, the Rebbe Yehuda Amma, he said, you shouldn't go for a big, unless there's a big need, because it's dangerous. Now it sounds like he forbade it because of minhag, because they thought that it's not asim in adin. The Rebbe answered based on what they said. Rebbe himself held it was asim in adin because it was dangerous. The Bavli brings the story of Bnei Beisham. Never used to go on Fridays on the sea, even to nearby areas. And he passed them, they shouldn't change their minhag. Some say it's the same story as here. Others argue, okay. Now, there are places where they do Malacha Erev Pesach in the morning and places where they don't. Now, surely you have like different groups doing different things. Amalei says, if you got where Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, and Va'alacha, and some people follow them, and some people follow them, it looks like the two Torahs, that's like his guy to do. But here, by not doing work in the morning, it's only minhag. It's not issur to do like these minhagim. It doesn't look like two Torahs. Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, Beis Hillel, how can anyone follow Beis Shammai? So, even without like his guy to do, you should all follow Beis Hillel. So why are you giving me an example? So he gives another example of like this guy to do. Amalei. The Shasha, Ela Eisen Kreb Meir, Ela Eisen Kreb Yaisa. Rameir and Rabbi Yaisa arguing, and some people do Rameir, and some people follow Rabbi Yaisi. But Rameir, Rabbi Yaisi, and I like Rabbi Yaisi, should I love Rabbi Yaisi? But they trade Tanaim under Rameir. No, two versions of Rameir. Trade Tanaim under Rabbi Yaisi, or two Tanaim argue in the view of Rabbi Yaisi. The one Tana holds it was Machlokes Rameir Rabbi Yaisi. Another Tana changed the opinions round. So you couldn't pass in like each one of the opinions, because each day has got a Tana who holds that is the view of Rabbi Yaisi. That was like him. So some people will follow this day, and some people like the other one is Lotus going to do. Remember, the Bavli talks about two Batei Din in one town. Yeah, two Beis Dins in one town is Lotus going to do. Whereas nowadays we have people with different Messiahs and so on, and you have two Batei Din in one town.
But those times were tiny.
What?
You couldn't compare those times with
it was very different. It was very different. Now, Rish Lakish comes along, Amalei Harei. Now we're davening Musaf of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippurim of a Yovel year. But you mentioned Psukim, Malchus, Zichonis, and Shofars. But Yehuda, Nagu, Rabbi Kiva. They pass on Rabbi Kiva, the Malchus is in the fourth bracha, which is what we do. And then the Blei Shofar. V'Galil, Nagu, Rabbi Yechim, and Nuri. They held that Malchus was in the third bracha. So you have different places, different customs. Amalei Shani, that's different. Shem Ava Ba'asu Yehuda, Kegalil, if in Yehuda he did like Galil, or Galil, Yehuda, Yasi, for fulfilling duty. Arei Purim, these read them again on the 14th. They read on the 15th. Why is that like this going to? Misha said it's the Mishnah. The Tanu said the Mishnah is very famous. He had a pasuk to rely on. Mishpacha, Medina, Medina. You see, there were different times, different areas. We know from the pasuk that was the mitzvah from the beginning. So it's not about this going to do. Now, is that a person shouldn't change from the minhag of the place where he's gone to the place he's come. You're going to a place where they do malacha to a place where they don't do. You should always follow the place where you have come to. I understand the place where they do malacha to a place where you don't do, so you shouldn't do the work. Going from where they don't do to the place where they do, why do you have to follow the minhag and do work? But you just don't do work, so what? There are enough people around who don't do work. Why is it in that place? And people think, he hasn't got work to do. He hasn't got work to do. It's not a problem. Rav Simon Shem Rabbi Yochanan b'matzmiah. He's talking about for someone, it would be unusual for him not to have work. Everyone knows he's got work to do. And everyone will see, he's not doing work. His minhag is different to theirs. Therefore, in order to stop arguments, he has to do the malacha like the minhag of his previous place. Halacha base, yeah. Now, you mustn't change the minhag of the place during Malach and Erev Pesach. We're talking about changing minhagim about biur peres of Shavuos. Okay? The Torah says, Shabbos will be to you lachem la'achla, your animals, like when the animals have the food in the field, then you can have it. When the animals do not have the field, then you have to remove it. Right? Now, someone's taking fruit from place to place. One of the places, the animals don't have the fruit. You're taking it from where there's no fruit to an area, to where there is fruit. The other way around. You do have to remove the fruit. Some say bittul is enough. Yeah, then you can be Cohen it again. That's the idea of biur. Rabbi Yehuda said, if you bring from a place where there is to a place where there isn't, you don't have to remove it. You're not changing. You can tell everyone you want fruit, go there and get it. You can also go to that place. It's still there. You don't have to get rid of it. If there's no fruits in Tiberia, but there's still fruit in Siporin, the Ben Siporin can say, you brought from Siporin, they're still there. You don't believe me, say, go there, you go and get it. You can eat shvius in the house, relying on fruit in the field, which is hefka. You cannot eat shvius relying on fruit which is guarded. Right? Field which is guarded, then the animals can't get at it. So that doesn't help. Rabbi Yossi, he said you can have it in a house, even relying on that which is guarded. Sometimes they go in. It's like a guarded field. Sometimes they can go in and eat from the fruit. Now, relying on a guarded field, you're not done biur. People think, these things are not really in the fields, normal fields. They're not in other places. Why is Rabbi Yossi not worried about it? Amalai says, you can say to people who don't understand that this min is still there, min hashamo, from a guarded field I brought it. You don't believe me. Look, there's a field over there, go and see. You can go and bring from there. So there's no chashad, there's no suspicion. Right? Okay. Halacha Gimel, right? The place where they sold the sheep and the goats to the Gentiles, one can sell. Where they would not sell because they were worried that they might be not to sell little animals because you might end up selling big animals. But you can't sell the big animals, whether because of chashad or malach on Shabbos, whatever the reason is. Okay, we'll see soon. One place where you don't sell. Don't change. You never sell the big animals because they're doing work. The person buys it, they'll do malach on Shabbos, and you'll be over and shvisas behem. So we won't discuss. And you can't sell them even agalim and small calves. They can't do work. You might end up selling big animals. And you can't sell them shleim and shvurim, perfect animals or broken-legged ones. Rabbi Yehuda Mati b'shvur, he allows a broken one because you're not going to use it. Well, you're just going to shecht it. But B'seira Mati b'sus, he allows you to sell a horse. It's just for riding on. Now we're talking about selling behemadaka. It sounds like you can rear them in Eretz Yisrael. Mutzalekada, you're allowed to rear them in Eretz Yisrael. We said you're not allowed to. On Rabbi Bar, you go in Mahir. We're talking about. It's a name in the Midbar there, where they do grow these things. Shisha Asa Mill is a massive area, and the animals can pasture there without going to other people's fields. Now we said, the place where they forbid you to sell behemadaka to the goyim, some places allowed it. So we thought the reason is because, the goyim were worried about revere. So then, and it comes out the guy selling to them, you're over lifnei iver. But in some places where they sold it, it's because in these places they weren't worried about relationships with these animals. I'm a buy member. They wanted to say, if you can sell, you can be alone with. Be alone with these goyim, right? Or you can leave these animals with the goyim because they're not nechshad on avera. You can't sell asel yachid. Then you should also don't leave your animal alone with the goyim. Even if you say you're allowed to sell, you still should not leave them alone with these animals. Because again, there's chashad. What's the difference in selling them and leaving them alone? What's the difference? So he says, Taman, with selling, you're selling, give him to the guys. Now it's the guy's animal. So he's not going to do anything to it because he'll ruin the animal. But Amhacha, secluding with the animal, is your animal. And therefore he is suspect. Where they don't sell, you don't sell. Lama, why do they have this custom? Even small animals now. The seller, you're removing the obligation to do the shearing. Okay, fair enough, it was a goat. But, if it was a goat, there's no mitzvah giza, it only applies to the sheep. So why can't you sell a goat? So he said, by selling him, you remove the mitzvah b'chayr. If it has a b'chayr, there will not be a din b'chayr. It's fair enough if it was a male. And then what are you going to say? There's no b'chayr then. He's not going to. Well, why is there a problem? He says, when we see every day matanas, you remove the matanas, the keva for the kohenim. If that's the case, we don't sell wheat. You're removing the chala obligation. Wine and oil. Again, you don't make a bracha before you eat it. That's a very good question. We have no answer. The truth is, the reason for the meaning not to sell behema daka is not because you're causing various mitzvahs to be uprooted. It's in gezerah because of behema gasa, because of a big animal. At the end of the day, that's the reason. Yeah? Or maybe a chashash or revia, I don't know, whatever. Okay. Whatever happens, you don't sell the big animals. What's the difference? Behema gasa, big animal, if it plows, it does work on Shabbos, plowing. So you can't sell it because it might do malach on Shabbos, and the meicha will be over Shrisas Behemtai. When your animal is doing work, which does it on Shabbos, the owner will be still over. Behema daka ein ba chiv chatos. It's not going to do any work. Behena chayla behena gozes. Now surely you can milk it or shear the animal, and these things are done with behema daka. So there's a chiv chatos there. Tamam, there, the one who milks it, the one who shears it, whom is chayiv. But Ram is liable. But here, doing malacha behema gasa, he is chayeves. The malacha is with the animal. You do malacha on Shabbos, you're over because of your animal doing work. Now, the reason why you can't sell a behema gasa to a guy is doing malach on Shabbos. But wait a minute, you sell it to him, surely it's the animal of the guy. And therefore, why would you do malach over moich? Why is the seller over on this? So the answer says, I'm Ravimi, Ravlaya, B'Shem Rabbanan Taman, you might sell it to a trial, you put it on a trial basis for a few days. If he's not happy, he'll give it back. And in the end, we'll return it. And the transaction will be voided after 3 days. Therefore, the animal was working with your animal. Your animal was working on Shabbos. If that's the case, you're selling it for trial and nisayon, then also it should be forbidden to sell it. And if he sells it shalom and nisayon, not for a trial, then what should be permitted? He says, well, one is forbidden because of the other. If you went against the custom in your town and you did sell a behema daka, do we put a fine on you? Can't say, but just like we do put a fine not to sell behema gasa to a guy, in the minag, we also put a fine going against the custom not to sell behema daka. Minaj goes about a minag. Where do we see you put a fine on a minag? He sold a camel to one nachri. Also, the kumer of Shemlakish. The story came, but Kifla. He asked him to buy back the camel and for double the amount. Begin the Asale Gamla in order you should return the camel. Not only he sold the animal to a guy, he was like an agent as well between the buyer and the seller, which is not so bad. And even so, Rishim Lokish fined him. The minig in that place was not to be an agent with selling him a gasa to a guy. They would call him the one who is the agent for the goyim. So you see, they put knas even on the minag, just like they put knas on this minag not to be the agent. So he was what? An agent between goyim. Is that right? He was an agent between the seller and the buyer. And still they put a knas on him. According to the one who is Masechet for the Nachrim. Okay. Ma Rishlakish now. To put Knas in the cellar. That which Rishlakish said is Rabbi Yehuda. The Tani we've learnt in a Brisa. Rabbi Yehuda. And Makabah Behemah min Agai. If you take an animal from a guy to rear it and to divide up the children, V'yalda B'chor, so therefore half the B'chor belongs to the guy, half belongs to Yisrael. Male ima b'shaveh, you work out the value, and you treat half the value of the Jew, half the value to a guy. V'nais el chatzi dam, you give half the value of the ox, of the B'chor, le Cohen to a Cohen. But nasna lo b'Kabbalah, if a Jew gave the animal to a guy, b'Kabbalah as Kabbalas, that the guy took upon himself to look after the animal, and then he gave it had a b'chor, then it's belonging half to the Nochri, half to Yisrael. The Jew has to buy the b'chor from the guy even 10 times its value because it's a knas. You sold your animal to a guy. And also they put a knas, no, I said kala damim, you give the whole value of the b'chor to Cohen, not just half. As long as even a small part of the animal belongs to a guy, then there is no obligation. That's how we paskin. Yeah, if a guy has a small percentage of an animal, there's no din of b'chor. Nifter Rabbi b'chor. Rishlakish, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda. So it was a similar story, and he was machmir more than Rabbi Yehuda. Ma'adar Rabbi Yehuda, you put a knas for the guy b'Kabbalah mishum hilchos b'chora, because one is giving, causing there's no vlad kedushas b'chor. Ma'adar Rishlakish mishum hilchos behema gasa, selling a behema gasa. According to Rishlakish, anyone who sells behema gasa gets a fine, even if there's no removal of kedusha of b'chor. Rabbi Yehuda matir b'shvura. Rabbi Yehuda allows you to sell the animal with the broken leg. The Tanakh forbade it. That's where the animal is not going to heal back. They said, even a broken one, if it's a female, and it can still have a relationship. So therefore, you'll leave it in your house to have more children from it. Meanwhile, people will see the animal in your house, and they'll think you can sell a behemoth to a guy. I'm talking about a male which is broken. Will not get better. So you're letters, but you can still have a relationship, we can give birth. You can still sire a child, right? So we should forbid even selling a male. Rabbi Oven, it tells me you're not allowed to sell fetuses to a Nochri, even according to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda agrees, if it can be healed, you mustn't sell it. So if there's an opportunity, the animal will do any malacha, you mustn't sell it. So therefore we forbid even selling like fetuses and so on. They're fitting for malacha when they grow up. And we're worried they will sell an animal which is fit for doing work. Taman Tanina. We've learnt in Bocheres with the din of Pidyon Petachama. One who buys the fetus of a donkey, where the fetus is going to be a b'chor to his mother, and the Jew Moichalai sells the guy a fetus of his donkey. Afapi she'enu rashai, you shouldn't sell the behema gasa to a guy. Mamishtatevlai, the one who's involved with this, who buys a female mother donkey, shutfas with a guy. Mamakabu mimenu, or one receives from a guy a female donkey in order to rear it to have the children. Mahanaisenlai, one who gives the guy his donkey by Kabbalah in this way, in order to divide up the vladim, the children. In all these situations, the child that's born from the donkey is part of an abachara, is part of from Petach, because again, the guy has got a share, there's no din b'chayra. Now, it says in the Mishnah, one who sells an uber, like a fetus of his donkey, to a guy, even though he's not allowed to, shouldn't do it. Rav Chagai boy kum Rabbi Yossi, less hada amra, do we not learn from here that you see the issue of selling behema gasa includes even fetuses as well of behema gasa? Even Rabbi Yehuda wouldn't argue on this. Rav Avon said this to Amr, Rav Avon Rabbanan Taman, Babel. So it's a measure. You cannot sell uvrin, as we have said. He allows you to sell a horse because it's there for riding on. He said the male horse. It kills its master in war. So there's no worry that selling weapons to Goyim. But a female, he says you shouldn't sell because you shouldn't sell weaponry to Nochrim. Yes, some say it's dangerous because the horse will run after a female horse. And it will run after a female horse of the enemy. It will bring you in danger. But yes, some say it will just urinate and stop. And if it stops, when the owner is running from an enemy, it is endangering the owner. What's the difference between them? Hasaris, a horse which is barren and sterile. One says it runs after the female Zaina. This one's not doing any running. The one who says it will just suddenly stop, but that applies to this reason as well. According to the Chachamim, now we said, Ben Beseira, the horse is there for riding. Why the Tanakhama argued, when the horse is old and can't ride, he will use it to grind in the mill. And that's Malacha which you're Chaim on Shabbos. Rabbi Yisribun, Ben Beseira, Rab Nasan, Amr Davarach, they said the same thing. The Tani, we went to Hosi Behema. If you bring out an animal or Chaya, or ophers or birds into the street, Bain Chaim, whether they're alive, they make them dead, Chaim, you're Chaim to bring a Chatas. Rab Nasan, I'm Masim, if they're dead, Chaim, you're Chaim Chatas. Chaim, if they're alive, you are Apostle, because the Chaim carries itself. And that's the reason of Rabbi Beseira to allow you to sell a horse. He holds, even if the guy rides on a horse on Shabbos, you're not over on your animal working, because the horse is not considered carrying the person carries himself. Rabbanan is like, the Rabbanan hold that riding is yesh mishum chiv chatas. They say carrying a living thing is chiv chatas. So the reason why they forbid selling a horse is because the guy will ride on it. But in the Gemara, the Chachamim give another reason to their words. Selling a horse because when it gets old, it will start being used for grinding. Why do they just say that the selling is forbidden because the riding itself is malach deraisa? So the Gemara answers, Kashita say she. Well, they answered him according to his rationale. Kafishita, you want to say Shatzam, you said riding is not malacha. And the whole thing of forbidding the horse is Mishum Hilchas Behema Gas, because you mustn't sell an animal. Choshash, maybe the animal will do other works. Of Anan Islam, we also hold we should forbid selling a horse for this reason, because the Kashayaskin is when he gets old, you'll have it grinding in the mill. Rabbi says, now another reason why you shouldn't sell a horse to the guy, we forbidden for two reasons. Mishum Klei because you're like selling weaponry. But Mishum Hilchas Be'em Agasa, and also the horse will work on Shabbos, and that's a problem. But Tani will also learn Cain. Chaya Gasa, a big animal. For Goyim, is also even a wild animal, right? Right? You can't sell them a lion, right? Okay, you can't do it. Man to these, so who learned this price of Rebbe? Because you cannot sell a horse, is considered weaponry. And that applies to wild animals as well. The Rebbe will hold you cannot sell Chaya Gasa. But according to the Divrei Chachamim, they didn't say it's considered weaponry. They said you'll do malacha when it's old. That's all very well. That Rabbisna, Chanin Barba, Shem Rab, Chaya Gasa, the Goyim is mutam and adin b'mehem agdaka. It's permitted when adin by selling behem agdaka because Chaya Gasa is like a behem agdaka. Basically, it's not going to do any work. Yeah, your lion is not going to do any work for you, so that's why it's okay. Where they eat roasted on Seder nights, you're allowed to eat it. Where they don't eat it, then you don't. Well, the Yemenites have minig to eat roasted meat and so on Seder night. Yep. Okay, there was a Tudas Yishroimi, wasn't there? We'll come to. Let's see. Where they light a candle in the houses Yom Kippur at night, then you light the candle before Yom Kippur comes in. In the place where they don't light. Right? On the one hand, we don't want people to be in dark. But some want to learn. It's because of the meal. Light is because of the meal. Einig Shabbos. People should sit in dark. They shouldn't trip. Some say it's not a chiyuv hadlaka, but it's a day of tanis. Some say there's still a mitzvah lighting there. Kavod Yom Kippurim. People shouldn't be in the dark. Some places don't light to prevent any marital relationships, etc. Enough committed between the reasons as far as the bracha. According to the first reason, even where they light, it's only a minhag ba'alma, so they don't make a bracha. It's only a minhag. They don't say v'tzivonu on that. Okay. Marco. So where they light a candle, they light. They don't light. You can definitely light in the shuls. The boys are failing in the dark pathways, or for the sick people. Rabbi Babai Kumi Rabbi Imi. Is the meaning of a egel? No, they don't eat meat. Even calf meat? Is that eating like Korban Pesach? I mean, no one brings a calf for Korban Pesach. So why should that be a problem? They only bring a sheep or a goat. So it shouldn't be a problem eating a calf. Amalei says, yes, a problem even with calf meat. Afila basaiv, even bird meat. Amalei says, afila basaiv. So I remember they wanted to say afila beitza, even a roasted egg. Afila kolkas, which is like some sort of vegetable. People might think it's roasted. They eat meat, roasted meat. No, it's only things which are slaughtered. The things which are roasted, other roasted foods like eggs, it doesn't apply. Shabbos, and even they don't like candles, Yom Kippur and they do like. Rav Sibon Shem Shubalev, Rabbi Yasser ben Shov Shem Alach Rav Shimon Lazar, Dash Rav Cheba Bar, he came to the Tabariach Kadad, and he passed in like Rav Shimon ben Elazar. That works. That yes, if it's Yom Kippur for on Shabbos, you definitely like candles. Rabbi Yossi Amala, he said Rav Shmuel bar Nachman Shem Rav Yodison, Rav Chizkiya Amrudan Sam Sem Yaakov bar Acham Shem Shmuel bar Nachman, Makom Shnogan Lahadlik. Where they like, Meshubach is better than Makom Shnogan Shnoi Lahadlik from the place where they don't like. Rabbi Metain Lachashukei, I prove it to you. Yom Kippur we fell on Shabbos. Even when they don't like, it's madlik and they like for covered Shabbos, even though there's no meal. So you should like Neros even every Yom Kippur because it's covered Yom Kippur. Rabbi Bar Rav Simon Terein in the rest of the Teinach again. I prove to you, the normal person Samua is humble. A person won't have a relationship with a candle with a fire burning. So it's fitting for every person to lie near Yom Kippur to prevent him doing a forbidden relationship in Yom Kippur. Maybe it's because of that. So when the one who says you should lie or don't light, right? Maybe it's for that same reason. They shouldn't be doing Avera Tashmish Mitzvah on Yom Kippur. The one who says you should light the candle because he'll see the candle, should be embarrassed. The ones who say don't light because through that they won't see their wives and therefore they won't do relationships. Whatever the various other rooms, basic Knesset, basic Medrash, whether the Girsa here, some change the Girsa, okay. The wash houses. Now, wash houses here, this is the opinion who holds that Baalei Keri, people who have emissions are allowed to go in a mikveh on Yom Kippur. Therefore, they need a nair for these bathhouses. We don't pass it like that. What's needed this day? Even when they don't like candles, you should light these places. Because there's no chashash avera in such a case. Can you wash your pickled vegetables and your cooked vegetables from mincha onwards? Now you're preparing Shabbos for a weekday. But did they allow it? They allow it in Yom Kippur, which is on a weekday, to start preparing for the meal, right? So the question is, what about when Yom Kippur falls on Shabbos? Rav says no. Rabbi Yaakov Baruch, nowadays we don't do it, right? It's brought in Shulchan Aruch about Knivas HaYerek, various things, but nowadays we don't do it. Rabbi Yaakov Baruch, why do they say Madich and you can wash the pickles, because people are desperately hungry? Is the difference if it's weekday or Shabbos? People are desperately hungry. What difference is it? The Mishnah argues on Rabbi Elazar. We read the Mishnah. The 12 lechem upon him get divided to the Kohanim la'erev on Motzi Yom Kippur, not on Shabbos. Shabbos they can't eat it. It's a tanis. They eat it Motzi Shabbos. And if you divide it on Shabbos, they'll be over Yisar Chana. It's a question of Rabbi Elazar. According to him, we should allow you to divide the chalas on Shabbos, just like you can wash the pickles. Shani, that's different. Shani Day Chudava Kal is very easy to eat the lechem upon him because it's already baked, it's ready to eat. Shema Yishkach, you'll forget we are eat on Yom Kippur. But the vegetables takes a while until they're ready. You'll remember, oh, it's Yom Kippur, you won't eat it. Hasi Reb Pinchas asked Masnisa Pliga Rabbi Elazar. The Brisa goes against Rabbi Elazar. It says in the Brisa, we learn the Torah says with Shabbos sign. Shabbos you don't do work, and Yom Kippur, which falls on a weekday chol, We learn from the Torah says Shabbos sign, Shabbos don't do work. Now, in B'chol HaShabbos, Yom Kippur on a weekday you don't do work. Like Gashkem Shabbos, how much more so on Shabbos? Like Socha Delay, why do I need to tell you this? I'm busy from Shabbos and some things you can do when Yom Kippur is B'chol on a weekday, Shabbos on then you don't do it B'Shabbos. Be'ezus, what's that? So Adachas G'vosh B'Shabbos, that's washing the vegetables. You can do it on a weekday, you can't do it on Shabbos. Not like Relazar who allowed you to wash them. We've got a very good question. The Gemara does not answer it. Rabbi Yaakov Bar Zavdi B'Shem Rebbevahu Nirin Devarim. I think you're allowed to wash the vegetables, but Dovid Shadaka Lava B'Sayne. Vegetables usually eat them by washing them with cold water. And you want to eat it, you'll have them cold. If you need hot water before you wash it with hot water, then don't wash it in Yom Kippur. You'll have to wait for Motzi Asam. You can't heat up the water. Until the water's hot, to Mekanev, you can sort of, something that is a reference to putting out leaves or washing the vegetables. Different size, what Mekanev Knimas Yerik is. And it comes out, you're not delaying it so much. If you're going to tell me you can do this, where you can have the vegetables cold, he's not going to do anything. If you do it in the weekday, you start putting out the leaves, everyone will know, oh, you want to eat the vegetables. As soon as the fast finishes while they're cold. And you'll appear to be greedy. Vegetables, some vegetables are better to eat cooked. And you're not going to take the leaves off on the day. You'll have to delay. You won't want to do it, and then you'll appear greedy and so on. You'll do everything later on at night. Now, what about this din of washing the vegetables in Yom Kippur? Can you wash them from Yom Kippur onwards? He says, Shari is permitted. Shari, yeah, it's permitted. Mahu, what about Meima Lachalita? To say Yom Kippur from Mincha onwards, to a guy, to Aveli Chalita, put it in hot water, yeah? Make me hot water ready for it from Motzi Tanis. Are you allowed to do that? Issa Amir Lanachri, tell the guys to get the water ready? Or maybe it's not. Amalei Shari is permitted. Now, can he tell him, Aveli Tuvin, make me Tuvin? Tuvin, some say these are nice loaves. They're beautiful loaves. Alright. Shari is permitted. Aveli Pasila, make me a whack ready to light, like make me a little fire to light after Yom Kippur. Aveli light, no. What's the difference there? Making the food is Eichel Nefesh. There, making the wick ain't Eichel Nefesh. That is not Eichel Nefesh. Halacha, hey, welcome Shagol says Malacha B'Tisha B'Avaisim. Where they do work on Tisha B'Av, you do the work. For even where they do work, Tamid Chachamim B'Teilim. Tamid Chachamim don't do work. Everyone should treat himself as a Talmud Chacham in this respect. He said his words with a question. Chachamim, should we worry? People should become Talmidei Chachamim in this. But even the Chachamim themselves never intended to put this bit of malacha on Tisha B'Av. We shouldn't forbid even Talmidei Chachamim to do work on Tisha B'Av where they don't have this custom. Right? The other Pirushim here. The Bavli learns a person should make himself like a Talmud Chacham. And it's not a question, it's a psak. It's fitting for people to be like a Talmud Chacham. Okay. Halacha Vav. We spoke about the minhag of doing work on Erev Pesach till Chatzos, and then other things connected to Erev Pesach. Now we're back to Erev Pesach till Chatzos. They would do work in the morning, and Galil lo ya'osim kaleka. They wouldn't even do any in the morning, no work. Yehuda would do till Chatzos, and Galil would not. It didn't depend on minhag. Halayla, the night of the 14th, Beishami Osrin to do work, Beishami don't allow, Beishami Matir and Achatal Zacham until sunrise. Now, Beishami will argue, if in Gadol they forbade Malacha even in the night. Hayoim, but if during the day of the 14th, everyone holds also you can't do Malacha. Rabbi Lazar Shem Rav Oshia, where they get this from, that everyone holds, according to this opinion, everyone holds is forbidden on the 14th. Rabbi Lazar Shem Rav Aisha. It says in the Torah on the Chodesh Rishon on the 14th day Pesach Lashem. Sounds like all the 14th is called the Zman of the Korban Pesach, even though we only offer it in the afternoon. So Galil felt you can't do Malacha all on the 14th. Now we spoke about doing Malacha at Pesach. We thought it depended on Minhagim. Our Mishnah says it depends on Machlekes. According to Yehuda, it's allowed. According to the Galil, it's also. Rabbi Yaakov Barach Shem Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Lav Shem Rabbi Lazar. Shnei Tamidim Shana Isa. These Mishnayos, one said it's Minhag and one says it's also. They're two Tanaim. The Tana that taught the Mishnah at the beginning of the parak holds that Malacha in the morning is Minhag. The Tana who taught our Mishnah holds that there was Machlekes in the Din. It comes out that there are three shittas with Malacha and Pesach in the morning. The man of God said also, you must not do Malacha. The Chadama said Mutter, you're allowed to do it. And his Minhag tells us, you're allowed to do it. The Tana of our Mishnah, he said it depends, Minhag depends on the Minhag in the place. Okay, to be continued, Rabbi Isai.